What was SVT? Oh my child, they were wondrous. They actually figured out how to make the Mustang cool again before drifting. People like Mustangs before drifting? Kinda, like, Mustangs sold well. Okay, they sold really well, but performance-wise, they were always behind Camaro, Firebird. And like, let's be honest, the import kids were cooler than us. Huh. So what did SVT do about it? Boost. Everything is better with boost. This was the be-all, end-all for a new Edge Mustang. More horsepower than a Cobra R. 390 stock. Pulley and a tune away from 400 horsepower. I mean, it's kind of hard to imagine it now that like a Mustang GT just comes with 400 horsepower right from it. But like 400 horsepower from a garden variety Mustang was absolutely unheard of. 6-speed transmission, a better version of the IRS that came in the Cobra, aggressive looks that made it actually look different than how the Mustang GT looked. Even the JDM and the Euro people had to give it a thumbs up. The Mustang was finally no joke. Not even just a high sales also round. The Terminator Cobra 0304, for those that don't know what model years, really made it special. The 0304 Cobra genuinely was a special car that got Ford back on the map. And of course, MotorWeek reviewed it, just like a Ford Escort. Now, we already know today that the Terminator is legendary, but how did it stack up with the mayonnaise crowd back in the day? John, tell me about it.
Mustang has a more storied history than the SVT Cobra. Since 1993, each new Cobra has managed to raise the performance bar of the Mustang seasoned chassis until it seemed as if the bar could not possibly go higher. But if there's one thing that we've learned over the years, it never pays to underestimate the ingenuity of SVT. Not only are the 2003 Ford Mustang SVT Cobra's fangs sharper, the venom is more potent too. Thanks to the SVT snake handlers, this Cobra is the most powerful reptile ever to escape Ford of Dearborn, due mainly to the Roots-type Eaton supercharger, water-to-air intercooler, and new freer-breathing 32-valve alloy heads bolted to a 4.6-liter V8 iron block derived from the SVT F-150 Lightning. That forced feeding boosts the snarly-sounding Cobra's striking power to 390 horsepower and 390 pound-feet of torque.
They really are not kidding when it comes to the increase in horsepower compared to the Cobra that was out a couple years before. Because another thing to keep in mind during this time period, this is when Ford was still kind of reeling from the fact that the 99 Cobra was a little bit light in the loafers horsepower-wise. I mean, the fact that they learned from that and made the Cobra so much more powerful. Because if you think about it, like, the new Edge Cobras were only 300 horsepower, and your GT is 260 horsepower. Like, 40 horsepower is like a chunk, but it's not a big chunk. Now 390 horsepower, I mean, yeah, they really knocked it out of the park.
It's true this time. All that power is sent along this snake's belly via a Tremec T56 6-speed manual transmission and aluminum drive shaft to drop the stiff 11-inch clutch and pull shots to 60 in just 5.1 seconds can become a routine part of your daily drive. So too a quarter mile of 13.4 seconds at 108 miles per hour. But with peak torque at just 3,500 RPM, it can be tricky to launch without excessive wheel spin.
Isn't that the truth? Now, I do think the 5.1 seconds 0 to 60 they're showing is actually a bit slow. I've heard these are closer to 4.9 seconds. Quarter mile to 13s, though, back in the day, that was considered really fast. I don't think the guys at MotorWeek really were that great at driving. I mean, you saw that was a lot of wheel spin. These are still pretty decent performance gains for back then.
And the red limiter cuts you off shy of the 6,500 RPM red line. But with a little practice, consistent performance is yours. And consistent performance with more than a dash of endurance is a term that applies to the Cobra's brakes, too. We averaged stops from 60 and 127 feet, a number they kept repeating time after time during our 8-run test. The Cobra is equipped with 13-inch vented Brembo disc up front, 11...
They didn't have Brembo brakes. They did have 13-inch brakes, that's true, and as you can tell, they did the work of getting the car to slow down. They were not Brembo brakes. Now, I will say that the Cobra brakes are honestly like a must-have solution for any SN95 and Foxbody Mustang. They're cheap to get, they are so much better. I really wish they made them an option for a majority of cars. And like the set that I have on my car, I actually got on Rock Auto for like $200. I did have to rebuild them a few times because they kept on leaking. That's what happens when you buy 20-year-old new old stock parts.
0.6 inch in the rear, mounted inside larger for this year, 17 by 9 inch wheels wrapped with 275 40 series Z-rated rubber. And both brakes and tires got a serious workout when we got the chance to put the new Cobra through its paces in the smooth and demanding confines of Virginia International Raceway. This is the second Cobra we've tested with the long-awaited multi-link independent rear suspension, but we were not impressed with the 2001 effort. While bump steer was cured, the overall feel was too soft with too much roll and too little predictability. This time SVT has done a much better balancing act. And at track speeds, the dated Fox chassis is now a heap of fun.
The dated Fox chassis is a heap of fun. Guys, you don't have to rub our face in it. We know that this is old. All Foxes are fun. Just some are a lot more fun and secure than others.
Steel Trail tuner Mustangs from Roush, Celine, and Kenny Brown. But taking advantage of the greater wheel travel of the IRS, this SVT is downright refined when driving on speed-controlled pot-marked highways.
I'm not sure if anyone actually knows this, especially if you're like watching these retro reviews and you might not have been around when new edges were brand new. There are tuner Mustangs. I actually have one. Mine's a Roush. It's interesting that they say, though, that those tuner Mustangs are actually faster, because this is how I see it. The tuner Mustangs were at the ceiling of their performance because, like, they're built on a Mustang GT, while the Cobra is at the floor. For example, a Roush Stage 3 is a supercharged Mustang GT with a lot of parts on it, and performance-wise, it's very comparable to this generation Mustang. Same thing goes for the S281 generation Mustang. The Terminator was kind of like at the floor, and it could only go up and become more faster, while a Stage 3, a Celine, you didn't have that much more to go. You didn't have that much more power you could really get out of them without taking the engine apart and starting from square one, because the thing is, they're still starting as just normal Mustang GT engine. It's not like with the Cobra here, which had, forged internals and it was like prepared for boost. While I understand where they're coming from, saying that like, a Stage 3 Roush's performance just as well. Like at the time, these were actually cheaper, and also like you were now at like the bottom of a starting point instead of like towards the middle and the top of another.
The new Cobra is eye-catching hardware. The Cobra's new look includes a cleaner yet more aggressive front fascia. A new composite hood with the Cobra's new look includes a cleaner yet more aggressive front fascia. A new composite hood with functional air scoops. Down the sides, the rocker panels have been reshaped and the fender scoops have been reworked to match the hood. While in the rear, the composite deck lid carries an integrated spoiler.
Where's the spoiler? I'm very familiar with what the Terminator spoiler looks like, and that is just nothing there. It looks like this might have been a pre-production model because for some reason it doesn't have the Cobra spoiler lump at all, but I do agree with everything else that they are saying when it comes to the styling of these cars. Another reason why I think the new Edge Cobra just wasn't that popular, besides the fact that it was light on horsepower, the biggest thing is that it didn't look that much more special. Sure, it had the front bumper and a SIG Cobra on the rear, but the rest of it looked like a Mustang GT. This generation, genuinely, the Terminator really looked like a different vehicle. Like all the parts they just listed are very valuable, and they just make the car look so much more meatier and aggressive. My favorite part is always going to be the Terminator hood, and I would love to have a Terminator hood on my Roush. I settled and I got one from a Celine, so I will say the updated styling on this just fits so nicely and looks so much more aggressive. The only thing I would have changed, though, would have been the side scoops. It would have been great if they did the bullet side scoop deletes. I'm sure you've probably noticed a theme. I don't like side scoops that much, especially when they're non-functional. And like on this car, they really stick out more because the heat extractor hood is functional. Unlike the GT, where it's just like a blank plate, this actually works.
Inside, new touches include bucket seats with Nudo leather trim.
Pseudo, not Nudo. That's kind of an awkward one right there.
With suede inserts. The driver's power seat gets new power adjustable thigh and side bolsters and a...
That is the most Mustang Cobra looking guy I've ever seen, though. Like, down to the cargo shorts with white socks. I'm not kidding when I said back in the day, like, Mustang people weren't that cool. Ken Block, may he rest in peace, Van Gittin Jr., the 2010s were very nice to Ford.
Power lumbar support. The new gauge cluster now includes a boost gauge and electroluminescent lighting. And when it comes to punch for the price, the new SVT Cobra knocks tuner Mustang competitors out cold. The SVT Cobra Coupe zooms away for $34,750. The convertible list at $38,995.
Found the spoiler.
With an all-new Mustang chassis within sight, it's likely that this is the last SVT effort on the current car, and we're pleased to say it's going out on a high note.
Going out with a bang, as they would say. You know, brand new in 2003, this was a $34,000 car. In 2025 dollars, that's $64,000 and some change. So is right on the money for a entry-level Ford Mustang Dark Horse. I would say this is actually a deal, because it is true. When it comes to the other tuner Mustangs that had this much power, they actually were more expensive. And actually, that's what I'm going to be talking about next, is a Roush Stage 3 from this time. So let me ask you this. Would you buy a Terminator from this era? It's 2003, you just got your first nice paycheck, and you want a sporty car. Sure, there's European and tuner cars, and never mind anything from General Motors unless you want like what? Unless you want like a front-wheel drive Monte Carlo. Would you take one of these home? I absolutely would every day of the week. I think it's fascinating watching these not ever really depreciate that much. I think the cheapest I ever seen one of these used was maybe 19. So let me know down below. Comment, like, and subscribe. Are you taking home a Terminator in 2003?